Alright, welcome to the channel, and today we'll be talking about the Headamp GSX Mini and my impressions and thoughts on it. This was lent to me by a friend, and I've had a pretty fun time with it. Let's get into it. So the aesthetics wise, it has a really nice matte body with holes in it for venting and what have you, and it looks really nice. It looks like a really cool aesthetic. I'm really digging it. Very industrial looking, like modern industrial. The faceplate is a kind of a glossy fingerprint magnet with really nice volume pot. It has these really lovely toggles, which you can hear there, and it's fantastic. I really love that kind of analog toggle switch aesthetic. It's great. The other part of it, the build quality, very solid. I wasn't really worried about it. It's industrial built. It's really hard to kind of have any problems or issues with the build of this. It has these just great weight to it, really great build quality with the paint. Everything is just really nicely well done, really polished, simple and easy, and looks really nice. Especially if you want the color of the faceplates. They have multiple different colors. I'm a fan of the purple one. The other colors I believe are bronze, like a yellow gold, a blue, and black, and maybe I think a graphite or silver. So it's lots of options there. So the power from this is 6 watts at 25, 4 watts at 50, and 2 watts at 100 impedance. So that's something to take into account. This thing has gobs of power. Any problems with trying to power any specific headphone, this should be able to do it. The pros for this one are it's the small form factor, the build quality is fantastic, overall aesthetic is really nice. I really love the build of the toggles, the volume pot's smooth and easy to use, gobs of power. So the other thing that is fantastic about this is it has a pre-out toggle which turns off the output of your headphones and only powers your speakers, or goes pre-outs to your speaker, which for me is fantastic because I've been struggling with that setup with my Kefs and my headphone setup, where I'd want to listen to my speakers and then switch to my headphones, and my speakers will keep playing, and if I'm not from wearing my clothes back, sometimes I won't recognize it, and my wife or daughter will come in like, "You're listening to music too loud," Definitely a really nice feature, and I wish more DAC makers or all the different companies would implement something along those lines. A lovely feature, and I really like it, and I'm going to miss it having it. Otherwise, I'm using a dedicated system for my speakers and a dedicated system for my headphones. So the cons for this one is it doesn't really have any cons. It has quirks. One of the quirks that I came across was that when I was using my TT2 as a DAC out to it, it would get a little bit on the bright side and was just a little bit fatiguing. I was actually kind of put off by it initially until I saw on one of my Discord channels that I'm in, one of the members there mentioned that I should switch over to my Bifrost 2 or my ADI2 DAC with it and then see what my experience with it. And it turned into a different amp. It was actually right in line with what I was expecting, what I've heard about it. It was smooth, warm, had lots of detail and really decent staging. It was, like I said, gobs of power, so it powered down all my headphones that I used. And the headphones that I was using were Verite Open, Stellia, and Verite Closed. The things that I came across with it were that it's just, at this level of quality or amp, it's on par with everything in that realm and above and below. Depending on features and specifications, that's where you're kind of going to see the different wiggle room there. And I think with this one, the big, really cool feature is that pre-out toggle and a lot of power. So going back to the DAC side, I switched back to my TT2 after testing with the Bifrost and the ADI2. What I had done was I had switched it from DAC only to amp mode, so it kind of acted as a preamp, and then I lowered the volume output on it, and that brought it in line with the Bifrost 2 and the ADI2 DAC. Thinking that, not that I'm a scientist or engineer or anything along those lines, my thoughts are that it essentially was putting out too much power to the amp, and it was kind of over preamping it in a way, causing it to get a little bit brighter and a little bit more fatiguing. Take that for what it is. I don't think it was more of a quirk of just that synergy of the different gear than it was a problem with the amp itself. So the other quirk that I came across with it, also with the TT2, was I had the TT2 stacked on top, and the TT2 does get a little bit warm. It doesn't get hot to the touch, but it does get warm. And with it on top of the GSX Mini, the combo of those two got not overly hot, but it got hot enough to where I was like, I should take the TT2 off. And as soon as I did that, there was like no heat issues at all with the GSX Mini. In fact, I even have the headphone stand on it, and it doesn't even get as warm as when it had the TT2. So I think it was a combination of the dual heat layer, and it was almost just wasn't getting enough venting, and then I think the radiating heat just kind of caused it to get both of them to get more warm. Now, going into the GSX Mini versus say my Phonitor XE and the TT2. The Phonitor is, to me, just extremely neutral. The TT2 is more of that warm engagement, enjoyment style of amp, where it's still plenty of detail, plenty of stage and imaging and all that fun stuff, and power to give you that slam and what have you. But it is a little more of that warmer side of the house. Whereas the GSX Mini, when I put those into play and I compare it against the other two, the GSX Mini to me kind of sat between the Phonitor XE and the TT2. Or it has, to me, just a little bit more warmth than the Phonitor, not quite as much detail, not quite as big of a stage, and it's more in line with the TT2, but not quite as warm as the TT2. And this is like very finite. These are like very minimal differences. So take that into account. It's not, at this level of amplifier, you'd have to do a lot wrong to get this to sound bad, if that makes sense. Like, all three of them are fantastic as amps. Really the big thing you're going to be looking at is feature sets, how it fits, and aesthetics and build quality. All three of them are really, really fantastic build quality, and aesthetics all of them are, I think personally, are beautiful amps. With the GSX Mini though, it does have that pre-out, which really adds a really nice feature set that allows you to basically toggle on and off your speakers and headphones at a toggle, which is fantastic, and really more companies need to implement that. That's my big takeaway for that one. I mean, at the end of the day, TLDR for this whole video is I think the GSX Mini is really a fantastic amp. It sounds lovely. It has just that little bit more engagement than the Phonitor's neutrality. Kind of like that nice, it's like that perfect combo of right there, flirting the line with being too neutral and then having a little more warmth to it. So it's a really nice combo. So the TLDR performs on par with other amps in its level range. Got a little bit more warmth to it than say the Phonitors. It has a little bit less detail, but not like, you wouldn't notice it too much unless you're A-Bing. The staging was it seemed a little bit more narrow than the Phonitor, but it wasn't, like, again, these were all like minor differences, and the only really reason I picked them up was because I was A-Bing back and forth. So take those into account. The amp itself is fantastic, and I can easily recommend it to anyone in the market for something along these lines. It has a couple of quirks, like I said, with the different DACs, so something to be aware of. But other than that, it's competing easily with everything in its price range, and below and above. Easily can recommend it. So thank you for joining, and I guess we will catch you guys on the next one. Cheers. Have a good one.